What's up, guys, and welcome to this episode of the My Living Legacy vlog. Over the last 2.5 years of just going absolutely all in on social media, I've experienced so many different things, so many unique conversations with people, so many unique settings and environments and events, and through the daily vlog, weekly vlog, the different podcasts, and all the different thousands of pieces of content that have gone out. What I realized is, as much as I was doing this on the front end to provide value for other people, that I have been the biggest recipient of value myself. And the things that I've learned over these last 2.5 years, not only about myself, but the things that I've learned from other people that I've been able to interact with because of social media, have really transformed who I am today. And I look back on this period of time with so much gratitude. But I realize that all of this content has and will always be created for impact. I've got a story that I think is worth sharing. Actually, just walked out of the gym, sitting in my car, and was on the treadmill, and felt so convicted, almost to the point of tears. It was very strange, but felt God just pushing me to start documenting my story. Graduated from college, got married immediately, started working as a financial advisor, and was doing incredible. Made almost $100,000, like right at $100,000 my very first year out of college. Thought I was invincible. I had a huge head, was arrogant, drinking too much, being an idiot, not being a good husband. Over the course of about 2 years, I lost my job in a situation that was completely out of my control, and hit me hard. A year later, after that, received a phone call from a gentleman that wanted to let me know that he had been sleeping with my wife for the last 7 months, which ultimately led, over the course of the next year, a divorce. So fast forwarding, met an incredible woman, got married, been married for a little over a year now. And I think one of the things that is also kind of culminating to me making these videos as we're starting to try to have a child. So I think that's really hitting me as far as not only who am I and where am I going as the man for me and as the husband to my wife, but as a father, potential father to a child. That is very intimidating to me at this moment. And I have a lot that I need to do over this period of time until that happens. Entered into a career where now I travel 4 nights a week to another state. But if you think of last year making 40-50 grand, and I've made over $160,000 in my first 7 months this year. So my life has really transformed monetarily. So I mean, that's just a brief snapshot of a lot of stuff going on in my life. And so I want this video to be a tipping point, a turning point, a line in the sand where I can look back and say, that's when I really got in the game. That's when I really started living up to my true potential. Every little thing that's going on with me, I want to document it, and I want to have a place where I can look back and see where I've been, see the progression over the days and weeks and months and years, and ultimately see what it turns into. But here's to starting a process and figuring this thing out, and that's what I'm going to do. do it till I'm dead. I hope you're hungry, cause it's time for the daily bread. So, how do we get here? It's been 100 episodes of the Daily Bread vlog. We thought about what to do for the 100th episode. Should we get some special guest appearances and reach out to some big name influencers? Should we do a montage of all the different episodes that we've had over this last 100? Should we highlight certain segments? Should we reenact certain special moments that we had over this last few months? Ultimately, what we decided that we would do is just have a very simple conversation in the exact same place that we filmed the very first episode, wearing the exact same jacket from the very first episode, which, by the way, I'm going to take off because, let's be honest, it's summer in South Carolina, and man, that feels a whole lot better. But when we set off on this journey with the Daily Bread, we wanted to just document the story, document my life over these 100 episodes, the daily grind of what it takes to be successful. And so TJ and I set out, and he traveled with me every single day. We've been in California, New York, we've been all over Georgia, a number of other locations, Florida. Can't even really remember all the different places we've been, things we've done, people we've met. But it's been truly incredible. It's been life-changing for me, and it's been life-changing for so many, as evidenced by the messages and comments and feedback that we've received. But I want to use this 100th episode to pause, reset even, and give you the new focus from here on out on the Daily Bread vlog. See, over the last 100 episodes, I've shared so many things with all of you. You've seen stuff about my family. You've seen the ins and outs of my business. You've seen me and TJ freestyle in the car, which was atrocious. But there's also a lot of stuff that you haven't seen. There's a lot of things that you haven't heard. And I've come to the realization recently that omitting the truth is the very same thing as lying. And so I sit before you, I was about to say stand before you, but I sit before you and tell you, over these first 100 episodes, I've been lying. I've been withholding the full story. And, you know, transparency is a funny thing. Everyone wants to scream from the rooftops, you know, transparency, we need more transparency. And everybody wants more transparency until it comes right down to being transparent. And I have felt like I've done a decent job at being transparent, authentic, real over these 100 episodes. But recently I've realized that there's so much more of the story that you haven't heard. There's so much more about me that you don't know. And a lot of that stuff I've hidden for many reasons, obvious reasons, privacy, things I'm ashamed of, things I'm embarrassed of, things that I've struggled with, pain in my past. And there's been some valid reasons why I haven't put some stuff out there. But I now know that the truth shall set you free. I think I just said sat. The truth will set you free. And it's this quest for truth that I am now on, and that I am now willing to bring you along with me. And so in this 100th episode, I wanted to share one of those things that you've never heard, one of those things that many people never knew, one of those things that there's family, friends that are going to be hearing this when it comes out for the very first time. So we started this daily vlog. TJ moved down to Greenville, South Carolina towards the end of December. The very first episode came out January 1st. And what most people don't know is that on December 1st of that year, I quit drinking. And even as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking of the stories that I've been telling people over these last few months as to why I quit drinking. And the story that I created as to why I quit drinking was that it was a business decision. That you know what? Every area of my life has just been growing so fast, and I've been progressing and transforming into this new person, and my business has just gone through the roof, and this, social media, build this personal brand, everything has gone, so well that I took this audit of my life and I looked at all the areas, pros, cons, weaknesses, strengths, and the risks, and the one main risk was alcohol. And so I just made this business decision that if that was the one big risk, that I just needed to eliminate it and just take it off the table so that I wouldn't risk all of this growth, that I wouldn't risk all of the success that I've had, that I wouldn't risk my future success by doing something stupid. That was a lie. It was a lie. The reality is, I had a problem with alcohol. And I've had that problem for a long time. Thinking back, the first time my parents ever knew that I drank was when they got a phone call that I had gotten a DUI my freshman year of college. That was the first time they ever even knew that I drank. That really kicked off quite a stellar career in alcohol abuse for me. I was never a frequency guy. It was a quantity problem. If you asked any of my friends, family to describe me, one of the words or phrase that they would use is all in. And I've mentioned that on one of the recent episodes, that I'm just an all in or all out kind of guy. So for me, if I'm going to drink, I really don't have any interest in having one or two drinks socially. If I'm going to drink, I'm going to drink. I'm going to have a really good time, and I'm probably not going to remember much. And that's just the way it was. So it may have only happened once a week, once a month. There are periods during college, periods right after college where it was happening Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. And quite frankly, over the last year or two, it's probably only happened, once every couple of months. But if I was going to drink, I was going to do a really, really, really good job at it and cause a lot of damage and destruction along the way. I honestly can look back at every painful situation that's happened to me and that I've caused. And I know 100% that alcohol was at the root of that situation. That alcohol was involved and played a major role in all of those situations. It would be easy for me to sit here and make light of this situation. Tell some funny stories, and there's plenty of them, about things that I did when I was drunk, things that I did when I was completely blacked out. And I'll tell you, like I was the life of the party always. Like people, I remember having conversations with people that they would say like, hey, you know, so-and-so, a friend of mine, they were telling me like, man, like we get to hang out with Tyler tonight and it's going to be freaking crazy because he'll always just creates a crazy situation every time he goes out. And it's true. And it's true. And I thrived in those situations. A lot of my introvertedness was masked by alcohol. You get 3, 4, 5, 6, 16 drinks in me, and I can become extremely extroverted. And quite frankly, that's played a large role in trying to fit in and trying to build a business and trying to gain new relationships and just being social. And I want to kind of put this out there because I think it's extremely important for people to know is that I don't have a problem with alcohol at all for others. Just for me, I've come to the realization that I just can't handle it. And so I am the last person that would ever condemn someone from drinking. Quite frankly, I envy someone's ability to not have it control them, but have them be able to control it. But for me, I just can't do it. And so I made this decision after getting completely blacked out that night in December. Woke up the next morning, my wife was telling me the things that I had done the night before, and I was just embarrassed. It wasn't bad stuff. It wasn't terrible stuff. I wasn't a horrible human being that night before. It was just embarrassing, some of the stuff that I had done in front of a couple of friends and in front of my spouse. And I just made that decision that day that I was done. I was done being an idiot. I was done pretending like it wasn't a problem. That's really what it is. I just didn't want to admit that it was a problem because that to me seemed weak. Like what? Something is controlling your life. Something is out there that you don't have the ability to handle. Like that's weak. It's probably the strongest thing I've ever done looking back. And it's funny, you know, you don't think you have a problem. You don't think you're an alcoholic. But then you start making comments like, oh man, it's been 6 days since I quit drinking. Oh, it's been 13 days and 4 hours since I had a drink. Oh, it's been 1 month, 3 days, 4 hours, and 17 minutes since I last had a drink. And you start to say these things, and those are a little bit of exaggeration, but not much. And you start realizing like, that's interesting. If I can remember, and if I'm thinking about this, and if I'm making a big deal out of these milestone amounts of time that I can go without having a drink, that maybe this was a bigger problem than I thought. I can remember as we started this vlog, I had just quit drinking that month. And so the entire time I've been going through this process of documenting my everyday life, I have never mentioned once that I was going through this struggle of quitting drinking. And it's not good. That's not transparency. That's not real. And I apologize for that. I apologize for that. I just wasn't ready to go public with that information. But now I am. What has happened over the last 5 months of not drinking has been nothing short of extraordinary. I feel, it's almost funny, I feel like I've unlocked some type of superpowers. I can remember in the first few months that I was actually working out less than I normally was. I was eating worse than I had been, but by eliminating alcohol from my life, I felt like I was getting in better shape. I felt healthier. It's crazy. Now that my workouts, intensity has increased, frequency has gotten back to normal, my diet is on point, I literally feel like I have unlocked superhuman powers. Things that I've never had before, like vascularity in my arms, like things that I've never had veins in my arms, ever. Now they're all over the place. My strength has gone through the roof. My mental clarity has gone through the roof. Just everything has gotten better. Not only that in the vein sense, but my relationship with my wife has gotten better. Our relationship with my daughter has gotten better. My relationship with my business partners has gotten better. And it's all because of that one decision. An interesting thing has happened over this last 5 months as well. I thought, in my mind, the most difficult part of quitting drinking was going to be in social settings being the only one that wasn't drinking. And you can understand that, right? Like if you're out at a networking event, and it's at a bar, and you're the only one that's sitting there sipping on water, that could be awkward. You hear the cliche things like in movies, like, oh, I'll have a club soda and lime, like you're fooling anybody. But when we went out to that very first event that me and TJ went out to Take Ownership with Gerard Adams and Eric Thomas, I remember going to dinner with a group of guys that night and no one was drinking. And I remember going to other events and other events and other events and kind of find out that a lot of these guys that were excelling, a lot of these guys that were huge influencers that were making a big mark on this world, they weren't drinking either. And it wasn't a big deal. No one even knew that I was struggling with it internally. And so I look back now and I just think about my life before, and I think about how it was kind of the center of everything. And not necessarily in a bad way, like we're talking about heroin or something, but just the center of like, hey, we're going on vacation, we're going up here, like, hey, okay, like, you know, who's going to get the beer? Who's going to get the liquor? What bar are we going to meet up at? And then what bar are we going to go to? It was just kind of like centered around the activity of the day or the weekend. It was just kind of what it was all about. And that's not good. It's not good. And so now I just have this new perspective on life where there's nothing that has that hold on me, that grip on me. There's nothing that I'm tied to. And man, it's like it's the most freeing feeling in the world. But I can look back to every area of my life, like going through my divorce, in the darkest place that I'd ever been, and knowing that alcohol was probably at its height during that period of time. Every other time in my life where things just weren't going right was when alcohol had the biggest hold on me. And so I put this out there just as the first small snapshot of what's really going on in my life. And I use this first story as a precursor for more stuff to come. Because I now know that it's my job, it's my duty, it's my responsibility to not only document what it takes to be successful, but show the whole story, show everything, uncover it all. Because I've got a feeling that there's somebody watching this right now. There's somebody looking me in the eye right now that if they were honest with themselves, they know they have a problem too. It may be alcohol, it may be drugs, it may be pornography, it may be adultery, it may be a number of things. But if you're honest with yourself right now, you can say, crap, I need to figure that out too. I want to unlock those superhuman powers. Because it's not just superhuman powers in the way I feel health-wise, eliminating that toxin from my body. It's the way I feel now living without this weight on my shoulders. And how many other people out there in the world are walking around with huge weights on their shoulders that are carrying this guilt of the things that they've done in the past, that are carrying guilt about the things that they're currently doing, and that need to be set free. So if I can help push someone in that direction, if I can help someone make that pivot in their life, whatever that thing may be, I've done my job. And I'm extremely nervous. I'm extremely scared. But I'm extremely excited all at the same time to start telling the real story. And it's my hope that you'll start seeing that as episodes come out, day after day after day after day, like they do. And you'll notice a difference in me. You'll notice a difference in the subject matter which we speak about. And you'll notice a difference in the conversations that I'm having with others. I've realized that this stuff needs to be talked about, that people need to start discussing the truth. And the only way I can give somebody the permission, the audacity to speak their truth is by first speaking mine. And quite frankly, if that needs to be my role, if I need to be the one that puts it out there first, that it gives somebody the permission to share their stuff, then I'm completely okay with that. And you know what? That fear and that anxiety, that's called discomfort. And what have I been saying this entire vlog? What have I been saying over 100 episodes? If you seek discomfort, the world will deliver you pleasure. I cannot think of a better way to seek discomfort on a daily basis than by exposing the truth, and helping others expose the truth and expose the truth. And you know what will come from that? Pleasure. You know what will come from that? Growth. And you know what will come from that? Life change. I promise you, over these next 100 episodes, you will see a change in me. But it's my real hope that over these next 100 episodes, you will see a change in you. Because that's the only reason why we're doing this. From day one, we wanted to document. What does it look like to go out there, perform at a high level, execute day in, day out, build a business, build a personal brand? We're going to continue to do that, but along the way, we're going to talk about the stuff that really matters. We're going to talk about the stuff that nobody else wants to talk about. We're going to talk about money. We're going to talk about alcohol. We're going to talk about sex. We're going to talk about relationships. We're going to talk about religion. We're going to lay it all out there. And just as I said that, my heart started beating a little faster because it made me nervous again. But I promise you, I will follow through, and we're going to make a difference with this vlog. So I ask you to join me in this process. Engage with the content. If you have a story that resonates with any of the stuff that comes out over the next 100 episodes, share it. Put it in the comments. At the very least, send it to me in a message so that we can walk this path together, so that we can help one another grow, and so that we can all become better. That whole high tide raises all ships, it's true. And my hopes is for this platform to be that high tide that gives everyone else the permission to raise up. So guys, with that, I know this is kind of a somber, kind of a down episode. And of all episodes to do that on the 100th episode, where it should be like confetti coming from the ceiling and balloons releasing from the bottom, maybe some doves and some laser lights, and let's celebrate and bring out a cake with 100 candles. But to be honest with you, I can't think of a better way to celebrate this 100th episode than by finally telling you just a little bit of the actual truth. And to commit to you that here moving forward, that's all that you're going to see from me. So I ask you to join me for these next 100 episodes as we get real, we get raw, but we get down to what's really important.
Groceries is going to the poor families when we're out in the field, and we'll be going house to house, and we'll run the folks that have no food, period.
Así que oremos.
Heavenly Father,
Padre Celestial,
I thank you for each and every person here.
yo oro por cada persona en este lugar, Padre.
I pray your blessing over them.
Yo oro por muchas bendiciones sobre ellos.
In the story of Lazarus,
Y así como en la historia de Lázaro,
when you showed up
cuando tú te apareciste a ellos
and you saw everyone grieving,
y cuando tú miraste que todos se lamentaban, lloraban,
you wept for them,
entonces tú lloraste por ellos también.
and then you provided.
Pero luego tú te apareciste para proveer.
Every single person here today,
Y así que cada persona en este lugar hoy,
I pray that the pain that you're feeling now,
yo oro, Señor, para que el dolor que ellos están pasando o sintiendo,
that God will answer your prayers,
que Dios conteste tus oraciones,
will give you peace
que te dé la paz que tanto quieres
and hope for the future.
y también esperanza para el futuro.
In your precious heavenly name,
En el precioso nombre de Jesús.
amen.
Amén y amén. Gracias, gracias, hermano.
There's like 200 kids here. I cannot stress how important it is for you to go on one of these trips, for you to come down to the Chosen Children Ministry here in Nicaragua and see what's happening in the communities. It's absolutely beautiful to see what God's doing. I mean, just out of nowhere, all of these people showing up. It's honestly, I'm almost speechless, but I cannot wait for you to experience this with us in the future.
We will partner with you here and get you the stuff that you need.
Dándole las cosas que ustedes necesiten.
But we want to see your children
Queremos ver a sus hijos
be the next doctors and lawyers and accountants
abogados
and hold the jobs in
y
Nicaragua.
tener trabajo acá en Nicaragua.
All right, guys, we just got done handing out backpacks full of school uniforms, school supplies, all provided through the Genesis Project through Chosen Children Ministries. And just gave out 32 of those bags to some kids that actually want to go to school, they want to get an education, but just don't have the means, don't have the supplies to be able to do so. So Joseph gave an incredible speech talking about education and that it equals opportunity. And we got to bless these families with supplies so they can get their kids to school and get them the proper education to ultimately give them an opportunity. So incredible time. You know what the town is called? Tuna? Is it called, this area called Tuna? Tunil, not Tuna. Very different. Very different. But we are in the town of Tunil and just absolutely blessed to be here.
Started off to visit the 10 towns in that region and begin to proclaim the great things Jesus had done for him. And everyone was amazed at what he told them.
Surprise for you.
Hi guys, we are out here, as you can see, in a trash dump and just got done feeding about 75 people with a hot meal. Got them some necessities, some toothbrush, toothpaste, things like that. But I mean, as you can see, this is about as tough as it can possibly get. We were up on the top part and there were probably over 500 vultures just everywhere in and amongst the people that are going through the same exact trash, fighting over the same exact food. And this has been a humbling experience. We drove around through it And just to see that this is what people are doing to find their food, to find plastic, any type of metal, anything that they could possibly trade or sell. And they're here every single day doing this, day in and day out. Very, very humbling experience, but extremely grateful to be here. It puts everything in perspective as to what we see as problems, as to what we see as obstacles in our own life. But we were able to feed every single person here. A great thing for one day, but obviously they got to worry about the next day, and that's where the problem really begins.
Been serving food, and we just ran out of food. We were ready to do 350 plates, and they went out to get more. So I think to this point we have given over 400 plates of food. And one of the impressions we just had was that if people had food at home tonight, they would stay at home. But they didn't stay home. They came here to the church, just trying to look for a plate of food to continue the survival.
We're just sitting here talking with Pablo. We call him Tabs. And we're sitting here looking at empty bowls and lines of people still left that are hungry. And I was just thinking, if it was, in my hometown, the way that we live, if a restaurant offered free food, church was offering free food, or whatever, I probably wouldn't get out of bed. I wouldn't leave I wouldn't waste my time, because we have so much. We have so much, and the fact that there was over 500-600 people here tonight. I mean, the kids were swarming. It was unbelievable, and we fed as many as we could. We probably hit 400 meals, but there's still people that are hungry. And just thinking about how I wouldn't get up and leave my house to go get a meal, that's how blessed we are. And yet people still sit at home in America, and they hoard their food, they hoard their time, they hoard their resources, when we were never blessed to hoard. We were blessed to be a blessing. We were blessed to be a river.
Hi guys, we're here in another barrio, and this is a new one that we haven't been to before, but luckily tonight, as you guys saw in one of the feedings, we ran out of food with tons of people left. Luckily tonight we had enough to feed some twice over, which was incredible. We got to pass out extra meals to those who really, really needed it, those that were really, really struggling to provide, not only financially, but just to be able to put food on the table. We were able to provide for them, which was absolutely incredible. You guys will see a little bit of a clip. Dave preached tonight, Jeff preached tonight, and it was amazing that Guillermo was able to say a prayer over Dave and have everyone gather around and lay hands on him. It was just an unbelievable experience to not only watch, but to take part in and experience just the love and the Holy Spirit that's in this place, which, seemingly hopeless, but it's filled with so much hope and so much joy and so much peace. It was beautiful to see. So we just finished wrapping up, giving away the last few meals, and we're gonna probably say some goodbyes and head back to the compound. But another incredible night here with Chosen Children's Ministry and Dave Walton and all their crew.
What if your setbacks were actually a setup for God to do a miracle in your life? You see, if Jesus would have followed Martha and Mary and healed Lazarus, it would have been a great story. But bringing Lazarus back from the dead is a miracle. You're either going to live your life defined by the things that happen to you.
¿Usted quiere seguir viviendo su vida con las cosas que le han definido o pasado en su vida?
Or you will be defined by who you belong to.
¿O usted quiere ser definida o seguir al Creador que sabemos que siempre está con usted? Amén.
And when you accept Jesus into your heart,
Y si usted acepta al Señor Jesús en su corazón,
who you belong to becomes greater than anything you could ever go through.
sabemos que cuando aceptamos al Señor, usted le pertenece a un Dios y ese Dios es más grande que cualquier obstáculo.
Amen. Amen. If you want to belong to the one that is bigger
Si usted quiere pertenecer a aquel que es más grande,
than any pain you could ever go through,
que Él puede atravesar y sanar cualquier dolor,
then raise your hand.
levante su mano.
If your hand is raised,
Y si su mano está levantada,
repeat after me.
repita con nosotros.
Jesus,
Jesús,
come into my life.
ven a mi vida.
Make my story your story.
Haz mi historia tu historia, Señor.
I will follow you
Te seguiré, Señor,
the rest of my days.
el resto de mi vida.
In your precious heavenly name.
En tu precioso nombre santo.
Amen.
Amén y amén. Gloria al Señor.
Amen.
Un aplauso para Él.
The greatest opportunity that will ever come is never going to come while you're waiting. What do I mean by that? I mean, you have to excel where you are. You have to excel while you wait for that opportunity to come.
When you were talking about going all in, and you had to go all in order to open that or to earn that next opportunity. And I told Kaylin about it, and I was like, well, there's another angle to it. Like, how can you go all in? How can you know, like, whether to go all in a position that you know, like, you don't belong there? Like a position that you know you were supposed to quit a year ago. You know, like if your boss treats you like shit, for example. I was thinking about that fine line between going all in and those who are supposed to not even attempt to do that because they deserve so much more. They were supposed to walk away a decade ago.
Yeah, and I think with that, it depends on whether or not that thing that you're doing you're actually talented at and good at. Because like if you're talented at something and like what you're producing is like high quality, but it's not necessarily like, you know, your passion, it's a whole lot easier to go all in on that thing in the meantime. When what you're doing isn't that great and it's not your passion, and it's literally just like, this is my job right now and I'm going to do it. I'm not that great at it. I don't like doing it. Well, that's a whole other story. And so I think where a lot of that message and some of the Road to Legacies have alluded to, you know, this idea of, you know, your gifts are God-given. And when you're operating out of those gifts, people can see that because it comes out through the work. And it's going all in on those things. Like this may not be what I like to do. It may not be what I want to be filming right now, but I have a God-given gift to film and to create these videos, and I'm going to do them to the absolute best of my ability until the right opportunity to film what I really want, you know, comes along.
This is the Breadwinner Podcast. Hosted by entrepreneur, influencer, and sales wolf, Tyler Harris, bringing you the insights from the most successful forward-thinking entrepreneurs and influencers so that you can rise to the top and make more dough.
Now, let's get into the show.
All right, what's up, everybody? This is Tyler Harris from The Daily Bread, and I am the host of the Breadwinner Podcast. And this is our very first episode, and I am humbled and honored to have with us a very special guest. Over the past 3.5 years, as I have waged war on personal change, this guy has been in my ear telling me to be patient and ultimately do it anyway. And if you looked at my phone right now, his podcast, the MF CEO Project, is the only podcast that I'm actually subscribed to. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Andy Frisella to give a quick introduction, and we'll get right into the questions. Man, I cannot thank you anymore for being here with us, man.
Oh, bro, it's my pleasure, man. I think it's exciting what you're doing, and you know, it's been fun to watch you start to develop your own brand and get this podcast up and running, and I'm excited to be a part of it, especially with it being the first episode.
I appreciate that. So tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
Oh, man, I'm basically just a regular dude, just like everybody else, but I happen to have found some success in the entrepreneur world and been in business for almost 18 years. We have a number of very successful companies. My main thing that I do now is personal development. Speak a lot, do a lot of podcasting. Got one of the top-ranked business podcasts in the world called the MF CEO Project, as you graciously mentioned before. But man, really, what I am is somebody who just made a list of shit that needed to be done, and I did it. And that's what separates me from everybody else.
Man, I appreciate that. And I think that's what, from the very beginning, drew me to your podcast, which ultimately drew me to all of your content, is that it was real. It wasn't, you weren't getting on there telling people like, hey guys, this is super easy. Like, let me plug you into my funnel and I can make you successful. You were like, no, this took 18 years. Like the first X number of years I made nothing. And then after doing do it anyway, over years of hard work, that's what ultimately made me successful. So you weren't painting this like rainbows and unicorns and fairy dust, right?
I think that's the biggest problem with this whole entire space right now is that, you know, because most people aren't close to someone who's, very successful, multimillionaire business person, they develop this magical sense about it. And they think that somebody else or these certain people have the secret and they don't have it. And a lot of, people take advantage of that. It's just like, when people tell you could take a supplement and it's going to rip off 50 pounds in 2 months. They take advantage of people's lack of knowledge on the subject. And, dude, it's not right. And that's what got me into this in the first place. I saw way too many people trying to sell get-rich-quick schemes and, overnight success schemes and, rags to riches stories that it's just complete bullshit, dude. I started when I was 19 years old. The first 3 years I made $0. The next 7 years I made $695. Now those same companies collectively gross, $200 million a year. And it's going to continue to grow year after year after year. And the idea of, now and you can have it now and you can be a baller in 2 weeks and all this other shit that's being sold to people, it resonates with the most disgusting parts of myself. You know what I mean? And I can't stand it. So I just want to help people understand what it really takes. You know what I mean?
I love that, man, because the magic behind that is you got fed up with it and all this crap that was out there, all the noise, but instead of just stopping there, you said, I'm going to do something about it. And you actually went out and took responsibility and started that podcast to put that message out there, to be the difference in all of that freaking noise, which is incredible. Like I was on a podcast the other day and they asked me like, who are you? And it just kind of like hit me it just hit my brain. Like at that exact moment, I was like, I'm just an ordinary person trying to do extraordinary things by doing the extra.
Dude, and that's it, man. people overcomplicate it because they want, dude, we're fed. If you think about everything that we're fed through the media, through social media, even before social media, we have always been fed the glory stories. We've been fed the lottery winner, the overnight success, the come out of nowhere millionaire, the brand new hit actor who's making $20 million a film. We're always told about the stories of winning. And because we're not told the backstory of any of those things, we're not told about the 20 years that actor put into perfecting his craft, or the 20 years that business person put into building the structure underneath him that allowed him to gain success. We assume that it really is quick and easy because we're not told those things. And, telling someone the story of the grind and the grit and the dirty shit they had to do to get where they are. And by dirty, I don't mean like illegal. I just mean, getting in the dirt. And it's not told, man, because it's not sexy. No one wants to tell someone, hey, yeah, you could be a fucking millionaire, but give me 20 years of your life. You know what I mean? And I just get tired of hearing it. Maybe it is easy for other people, dude, but I can tell you this. I know a lot of successful people, a lot of millionaires, and a couple billionaires that I talk to on a regular basis, and not one of them did it in 12 months or 2 years or 5 years. It took 10 years minimum. And I think letting people know the expectation is important because, and I always use this analogy, when I used to play high school football, my coaches would do this shit, and I think you played sports too. My coach would do this thing where they'd say, okay, guys, we're gonna run sprints. And they would never tell you how many sprints you were gonna run. They would just say, we're gonna run sprints. And so the whole time you're running. You don't know how far along you are. And that's most people right now in business. They see these stories of 3 years, 2 years, 5 years, and then they're doing something for 6 years or 7 years, and they think they're doing something wrong, so they end up quitting. When in reality, if they would have stuck with it 10 more or 3 more years, they would have had something going, like something big going. And I've always been the type that when I used to have to run sprints, if the coaches said, hey, we're going to run 20 sprints, dude, I ran my ass off for 20 sprints because I knew how long it was going to take and I would be done. And I didn't have that anger or anxiety or getting frustrated because I didn't know how far along I was in the process. And these guys who were coming out and selling people on this idea of get rich quick, easy success, blah, 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 it's amplified because of the internet. I mean, there's always been those guys, but now there's tens of thousands of them. And that hurts people because young people who are successful and who would normally be successful are getting 5-6 years in and they think, fuck, I'm not getting good at this. And so they quit and they say, dude, entrepreneurship wasn't for me because of a bullshit standard that was imposed by a bunch of people trying to take money out of their pocket. And that, to me, is the biggest disappointment right now in this space. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And that was the whole reason why I began to document my life on social media, because I felt like the person from, 50 to, call it 150,000 in income, they only had 2 people to look towards in social media to get advice, to get motivation, inspiration. And that was the multi-millionaire that was living a lifestyle that was unrelatable to them, or someone that was faking like they were like that.
Exactly.
And that was what I loved about your podcast, is because you were at that level of success, but you were giving them the real information, not just the surface level stuff that everybody didn't need. So kind of basically what they were seeing was this misconception from a lot of crap out there. And that leads me right into this first question, which is, what misconception do people have about you that you'd like to set straight?
I think this is going to sound kind of funny because you have to watch my content and listen to my podcast to know this, but people think I'm an angry person. And I get it, right? Because like they're seeing clips. I get passionate, dude. I'm fired up. And if you don't know me, that can come off as I'm pissed off, but I'm not an angry person. I'm actually a really chill person. It's just when I get into teaching mode and when I get into creating content mode, I get excited, and that's what people are seeing. And I happen to have like people say resting bitch face. I happen to have that, except for a dude. You know what I mean? Like I kind of look mean, but I'm not. And I think, that's the biggest thing. Like when people say to me, they're like, dude, why are you so mad all the time? I'm not mad. I'm just intense and I'm excited because I want you to win. And, you know, if you were around me 24 hours a day, you would understand I'm probably the most chill dude ever. Like, dude, if we go have a beer, I'm not like all fucking wound up about shit. Like, it's just, you know, and I think that's the biggest misconception people have about me is that they think I'm an angry guy. And I don't think a lot of people even mind that. People like it because it gets them fired up. But realize that you're only seeing a little bit of my life. You're seeing the highlight of a piece of content where I said some good stuff because I was excited, and you're perceiving it as mad when in reality I'm just excited and it's intense. So I would say that. Well,
I mean, maybe after the next Otis and Charlie book, we can have like an Andy Frisella teddy bear that comes out or something like that. Maybe that'll help.
I need some PR work in that department.
So, second question: what is one thing that you quit doing that allowed you to win or succeed?
You know, just one of the biggest things we see online is like all these people who post shit like, I don't care what anybody thinks. I don't care. Dude, if you're posting on the internet, I don't care what anybody thinks, that means you care more than anybody what everybody thinks.
Exactly.
And you don't have to tell the world that you don't care what anybody thinks. But like a lot of people, I went through a phase where, you know, people who didn't understand what I was trying to do would make comments to me. Like, let's say my aunts or my uncles, which I only see a few times a year, right? Just like everybody else. You know, people I hadn't seen in a long time, people I went to high school with or college with they haven't seen me progress and evolve. And they would say comments to me that used to like hurt me. You know what I mean? Like they would say, not intentionally being negative, but just like weird stuff. Like, you know, what do you think you're trying to do? Are you trying to be like Tony Robbins? Like just stuff like that. Like just little things. And I think once, you know, as much as I tried not to care, when I would go to make decisions about what I would post or what I would say or what I was going to say in this video or how I was going to develop this product, I would let all those little thoughts that had hurt me from the past creep in, and they would affect my decision making. And that hurt me in business. Once I let that go, and once I quit worrying about what everybody else thought, legitimately quit worrying about it, not just posting on the internet that I quit worrying. When I legitimately let that go, it allowed me to be who I was 100% authentically, and that allowed me to create my best content and create my best products and help lead the best way that I could, become the best coach that I could, because I was truly comfortable with who I was. And, you know, we all go through this as entrepreneurs or as people who want success. People are going to say things to us. They're going to say things that upset us. They're going to say things that hurt us. They're going to say things that make us rethink what we're doing. And you have to learn to let that shit go and get in tune with who you really are, because who you really are is going to come across authentic. It's going to attract the right kind of people. And there's enough people in the world that will vibe with who you are authentically that you don't have to pretend to be somebody else or worry about what the reaction will be, because the people who don't vibe with it will naturally weed themselves out. They'll be gone. And then you're having a lot of fun because now you're surrounded by people who see things the way you see them, and you're running a little bit of a tribe, if that makes sense. And dude, I would say, you know, genuinely not concerning myself with what people thought of me, even the closest people, and becoming my authentic self. That was definitely the biggest thing.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's huge, man. And it's a difference between caring what other people think and allowing what other people think to affect what you do on a daily basis.
There's nothing wrong with you have a wife, your brother that you trust, your dad who you trust. Let's say they're supportive of you and they're giving you things to think about. That's completely different than what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who are insignificant in terms of, you know, whether you are or aren't. You know, they just force those little questions into your brain that kind of dig at you. And dude, I'm all for taking critical feedback. You know what I mean? But you got to make sure that you vet the people that you're taking it from first to make sure they have your best interests in mind.
And it's just normal human nature. Anytime that you are legitimately going after something huge, it is going to make those other people incredibly uncomfortable that are playing it small. Like that's right. And when that happens, their immediate reaction is to cut down what is shedding light on their playing it safe.
Well, dude, first of all, most people have scarcity mentality. They think there's only enough success for one person in the group. You know, if they look at it like a pizza, like if you're with four other people, 1 to 6 pieces, that means there's only 6 pieces left for the 3 other people. And if you get more, they're going to get less. That's how most people look at it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that, dude, it's really hard to swallow. It's hard to look at somebody who's doing what it is you truly want to do and then swallow that you couldn't get it done. And you shouldn't worry about that because that's on them. It's not on you. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So last question here. One day on your headstone, it will read, "Here lies Andy Frisella. He was blank." So what's that blank and why?
Man, I think about this a lot. Not exactly like this, but I think about why I'm doing this because I don't need to do it. Financially, I don't. It's not something that I need to do. More money at this point in my life isn't going to make that big of a difference. You can only buy so many cars and have so much cool shit. You know what I mean? And like, I've done it at all levels. So, none of that shit to me really matters anymore. And like, I question why I do this because it takes time away from my business. When I go speak or when I do the podcast, it takes time away from my business. So I know that the reason for me doing it has to be very important to me, but I haven't quite figured out why. It's just something I feel like I need to do. And I guess, with that being said, I guess, being someone who makes somebody, everybody around them better is really ultimately what I want to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And whether that be through the podcast or whether it be in person, I don't know, dude. Like, I've always just felt a calling to do what I'm doing. It's not a business thing for me, Will I monetize it eventually? For sure. Why wouldn't I? The stuff I give out is worth a lot. And people usually don't value stuff unless they pay for it. But I'm not right now, and I'm enjoying it. I'm having fun. And, I think it's really just be remembered as someone who made other people better, man.
That's huge. The money will always follow, right? Like if value and impact is at the forefront, then the money will always follow. And I've just been so big on right now, like, what about just trying to be an all-time great human being?
Yeah.
I haven't been an all-time great human being all my life. Not that I've been a bad person, but
no, dude, I haven't either.
Yeah, and I want when I'm outside of the room or one day when I'm gone off this earth that people look at me like, "Hey, remember Tyler Harris? How, dude, he was a good dude." Like, just that alone, like, he was a good dude. Like, for people to be able to say that, like, that to me now is just everything.
Yeah, man. We go through phases, right? Like, we go through our 20s, our 30s, and then we'll get to our 40s, etc. And I think we, evolve through those phases about what's important and what you want and what you're trying to do. And, if you ask me that question 10 years from now, it might be different.
Yeah.
But right now, that's how I feel, dude. I just feel like what you said, I know that if I work on it, if I can bring my ability to help people and get people better, it's going to produce good things for everyone. And, I've been fortunate enough to been blessed with a gift of being able to speak pretty well, and using it is something that I'm having a lot of fun doing, and hopefully bringing a lot of value to other people with.
Well, man, before we close this out, I'll tell you, man, when I met you, it was a little over 20 months ago at the Ask Gary V book launch. At that point, I had been completely afraid to put myself out there on social media, had zero presence whatsoever. And that meeting that night really was the catalyst to me starting to do that. And just in that process of putting myself out there, it's changed the course of the rest of my life as far as where I'm headed, and just where I've placed all of my values and just doing the right thing and doing, putting out value and trying to help people, like legitimately caring about the one person that randomly sends a message that is in need of help. And it's changed everything, every other area of my life, and that was directly correlated to that one meeting with you and Gary, and I'm honestly forever grateful for that opportunity. There's other people that will be affected the exact same way, man, so let everybody know where they can find you online. You
can just go to Andy Frisella, that's ANDYFRISELLA, at Andy Frisella on Instagram is where I do most of my content. The podcast can be found at the MFCEO THEMFCEO.com. All my information can be found there. I do a little bit of Facebook, a lot of Instagram, and then a lot of podcasts. So that's kind of where I'm hitting it.
Absolutely. Well, again, man, I can't thank you enough for being on here on the very first episode. It means the world to me.
Man.
And just like you said, man, like there's no reason on Monday at 4:30 my time for you to be sitting on here doing this podcast. But that are those legacy type things that will make you great all time 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. And it's those little things, man. It's all about intent, right?
Yeah. Yeah, bro. I just want to say, dude, I'm proud of you for taking this step. I know you're going to crush it. And I'm excited to see where you take this.
I appreciate that. And with that, guys, that is the first episode of the Breadwinner Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Breadwinner Podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and leave a rating on iTunes. For a chance to be on the show, send a screenshot of your iTunes rating to @TylerHarris page on Instagram, where he'll pick one person every single week. See you next time on the Breadwinner Podcast.
Welcome to the Sales Wolves Podcast. I am Tyler Harris.
Joseph Caldwell.
And we are the Sales Wolves.
Yeah.
There it is. You know, I was just thinking, is this the first podcast without a beard for me?
Yeah, it is. Yes.
Interesting. So that happened. Next subject.
Next topic.
Next topic, because it's still a little emotional.
We have a friend with us today, our guest.
We do.
Yep.
Bartholomew over there.
Yep. Just gonna rest
so this is episode 25 of the Sales Wolves Podcast. We appreciate you joining us today. As always, we've got two reasons why we do this. Number one is to show support. Number one is to show just a general appreciation for salespeople and just people in general. Whether you actually work in sales or not, you more than likely are selling yourself on a daily basis. At least you should be, and in the most proper,
no offense
way
to the streetwalkers.
In the most proper way, professional way possible. But number two is to actually provide training and real tactics and real just things that you can put into use in your everyday life, whether that be career or in your life.
Absolutely.
Ultimately to make an impact, and that's really the only reason why we spend our precious time and energy and resources, because we don't unfortunately get paid to do this.
Right. And you know, here's the thing, man, because the topic today is so near and dear to both of us, really this applies to absolutely anyone. Anyone that wants to see their circumstances change, they have to go through this process.
Exactly.
You want to introduce this process to them, man?
Absolutely.
Since I have personally witnessed you change, probably more than, I don't know that I've seen
I wear a lot of clothes, so.
I don't know that I've seen a better case study.
He's literally seen me change more than my wife. Wait.
That's not okay.
No,
Maitland, that's not true.
No, but that's the topic of today. It's really trying to figure out what is the secret to personal change. And when you talk about this as a topic, it's so funny to hear any speaker talk about it or to hear any program. The answer they're going to give you is going to be, hey, this program, this process, this system, this pill, this book, this Udemy course, or Udemy or whatever, this...
I don't even know what that word is.
It's just basically like programs and classes, this school, this whatever. This is going to give you the secret to personal change and to bettering yourself and to getting better. But what I would tell you is that the secret to personal change is found in the truth. It's figuring out who you actually are.
Yep.
And I think the best way to phrase that or to frame that would be to say that that's the first step.
Yep.
It's the secret because you can't do any part of changing until you figure out who you are. You can't start the other 30, 40, 50 steps along the way until you've figured that part out, which is who in the world are you?
Yep.
So who are you?
You know what's funny? As you were saying that, I was thinking back through the evolution that the evolution of our business.
Yeah.
And I had to face the truth of who I was and who I wasn't, so that I could know who I needed around me, so that we could take a business to another level.
Yeah.
And that's hard sometimes. That's hard sometimes to look yourself in the mirror and go, okay, you're terrible at this. But let me tell you, there's this guy Tyler. He's really good at this, and together we'll dominate.
Is that like a 90-10 kind of thing in that scenario?
Me do 90%, you do that. I just needed 10%, so that's why I could go for such low rent.
At least I'm getting what you pay for. But that's the best definition, basically, what he just said, of self-awareness. It's not about, when you really discover who you are, it's not about one person being better than the other. It's about celebrating who you are, celebrating your strengths, celebrating the things that make you, not focusing on the weaknesses, focusing on the things that you lack. If people spend the amount of time that they spend on worrying and complaining about the things that they're not good at, if they took that energy and used it on what they're good at, they would be a completely different scenario.
If you just double down on what you're good at.
And so when you talk about the truths, it's the truths about your actual skills and abilities, not what you tell people you can do, not what you rationalize in your head, like, oh yeah, I can do that, but like, what are you actually good at?
Not your Facebook.
Yeah. Man, I saw somebody yesterday quoted something, and it said, not everybody is who they post to be. P-O-S-T. And I was like, oh gosh.
That's great.
That's really good.
That's true, you know.
And so it's the truth about your relationships. It's the truth about your past. It's the truth about who you are behind closed doors. You know, the phrase, how you do anything is how you do everything. Who that person is. And so there's a huge elephant in the room when you talk about this subject, and that is, the biggest liar in your life is you to you. It's 100%. You to you. And so what are those lies that you've been telling yourself over and over and over? So here's how I'll frame this part of the conversation, because this is like the biggest topic that you could ever try to tackle in a short period of time. But it's, what are the things in your life that you're pretending aren't a problem?
Oh.
So when you start looking at your truths, like who am I? Who really, like, who am I? What are those things that are in your life that you're pretending aren't a problem? That you're telling yourself, it's not a big deal.
Not a big deal.
Here's the interesting thing, is like, when you ask that question to someone, like just last weekend, we asked it to a group of people.
Bunch of them.
And the second you ask it, and the second I just asked you, so what is it in your life that you're pretending is not a problem? The second I said that, you thought of it. Instantly. You thought of it. And then the second you thought of it, you immediately started rationalizing that that's not it. And so what's the answer that I can give?
You immediately started lying.
Exactly. And it's almost like that 5-second rule somewhere. It's like you thought of it, but then you tried to rationalize out of it.
Let me find something else that's easier to deal with.
Exactly. And so the reason why discovering the truth is so important is because every single self-defeating behavior, so if you think about self-defeating behaviors, every single self-defeating behavior in your life is a lie that you believed. You know, think of like, if I can just do this, then I'll get that. If I just do this, then I'll be happy. If I do this, people will like me. If I do this, then I'll be successful. All those little things, like you can look back to every single problem in your life, every single time that you've been through struggles and had obstacles. It was all because of different lies that you were believing at that time.
100%.
And obviously hindsight's 20/20, but being able to look back on your life and say, okay, all of these things that have happened, now who really am I? Until you figure that out, you're building a foundation that's just fake. And so if you build something just in the real world, if you build something on a fake, false foundation, anytime an obstacle, it's going to crumble.
Yep.
And so you can't begin that process of personal change until you build a solid foundation.
Yep.
It just can't happen.
And one of the things that you asked people to do was to write it down.
Yeah.
Write it down. Think about it. Like literally put thought into what it is. What is that thing?
And the reality is it's probably something that you may not want to talk about.
100%.
I mean, that's why you haven't dealt with it yet. And so what I would say is the majority of these things are things that you can't figure out on your own. It's something that you need other people in your life. You need mentors, you need relationships, friendships, family relationships that you can talk about these things. And the reason you haven't is because you're embarrassed. You don't want to talk about it. But my question to you would be, how's that working out for you?
Right.
If you
keeping it hidden, how's it working out?
If you could conquer it on your own, you would have.
Yep.
And so if it's still an issue, it's just something that you need to find somebody that's super close to you, that you trust, that you can just be open with and say, look, I'm having an issue in this area.
Yep.
It could be from one extreme to the next. Right now, the person watching this, I can just envision the person watching this, that it could be something that's huge, or it could be something that's just a little roadblock.
Yep.
But our hopes is that from this podcast that you'll be able to actually take that problem and just the act of telling someone about it, speaking it, and owning it, because that's what speaking it is owning it, that it'll start that process of trying to figure it out. Which is super important. So if you think about this process of personal change, I guess what you ultimately have to figure out is how serious are you about waging war on personal change? Because in order to conquer these truths, in order to figure out who you really are, you're gonna have to be serious about it
and brutally
honest.
honest.
And I know for you this year specifically, and over quite a few years for you, but this year specifically, you've pretty much set out to say, hey, this war on personal change, like I'm gonna put myself in discomfort or uncomfortable situations, and I'm going to put myself through pain. I'm going to experience things that I've never experienced before in order to really figure out who I am or what I'm made of. Right.
That's right.
I mean, things like getting in the pool at 2 a.m. in a 45-degree pool and just
every morning all winter.
Yeah.
Every single morning all winter. Now and that was fun. The podcast we did with Tom Shea. It was fun. We sat in here and talked to him some more about that. But man, it as a follow up to what you were saying when we spoke to these people this past weekend about personal change, and we got some of the best. Information is at your fingertips. You literally can get on YouTube right now. You could go to all of our podcasts. You could go to like legit podcasts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we're not legit. You could go to Gary Vee's stuff. You could go to Tony Robbins stuff. You can pull all this information out. You can pull it all out, and you can consume it and consume it and consume it and consume it. And if you do nothing with it, if you don't change you, what's going to change?
Not much.
Not much.
It's Joseph's favorite line lately.
It's my favorite line.
Not much.
Because I love it. Because we talk to people all the time, and they complain about everything. When you don't want to deal with that one thing he was talking about, what you'll do is you'll redirect. Right? You'll redirect. You'll cover this stuff up here. You'll wear these masks, and you'll redirect to something out here. Like I used to complain about political stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, man, I'm leaving this country if that person gets in. Did I ever leave the country? No. You know what changed for me? I'll tell you. I didn't vote for Obama. I could talk about all the ones. Bill Clinton was probably one of my favorites, but in hindsight, but I didn't vote for him just because he's funny, like hilarious, and he would do stuff unapologetically.
Which is by far the most qualifying candidate of the United States president.
That you have to be funny, and you have to do things unapologetically. But I would complain about it. Didn't matter what side, like Republican, Democrat. It really doesn't matter what side.
Sure.
Everybody was terrified about Trump getting in, or people were rioting, and you know what changed in their life? Not much. Nothing changes in your life with these things. People, we can ask you, what's holding you back? If what's holding you back is external, It's never going to change unless you change.
It's a lie.
It's a lie.
that you're
It's a lie
believing.
you're telling yourself.
Yeah.
So I posted something on Facebook the other day, one of my videos, and somebody said, well, that's easy for you to say. You're the CEO, and CEOs build companies and then just shit on their employees and take the money and make their money more and doesn't pay people and don't take care. It was something like that. And this girl, you could tell she was having a bad day.
Yeah.
Right? And so I answered her and I said, hey, this is my story. Let me just tell you some of my story because you don't know it. And she cooked. She was a cook somewhere and going to school. And she just didn't feel appreciated or something. And so I explained what I was saying with my post. And she came around. And as I was going through that, she understood, hey, one of my first jobs is I cooked at Hardee's. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Miserable. It was awful being there like 5:30 in the morning cooking biscuits. And oh my God, it's terrible. But in Black Mountain, I got paid less than, I can't even remember what minimum wage was then, but it was like 4 something.
28 cents or something.
28 cents an hour. So... yeah, I got to watch my language after the last podcast that was posted. I had the Southern Baptist Convention dislike us on Facebook. Just kidding. But man, here's the thing. Here's the point of everything that I'm saying is that if you don't change you, then not much is going to change. And if what you're saying is that this is external, that's keeping you from whatever your goals are, or keeping you down, or keeping you from doing something you want to do, you're lying. You're doing what he was talking about. You're lying to yourself. And so you have to first tell yourself the truth. Here's what Tyler say. Personal change. The secret to personal change is found in truthfulness. Truthfulness. Exactly who are you?
And I think a lot of that has to do with, when you think about personal change, it doesn't have to do with changing into somebody else, changing into being like this person, or changing, and I want to be like that person, so I have to wage war on personal change. It's about figuring out who you are and figuring out those strengths that you have and magnifying them.
Exactly.
Changing into the person that you are
supposed to be.
If you were living to your full capabilities, if you were living to your full potential. I read something the other day that said that the definition of hell was one day at the end of your life meeting the person you could have become if you had lived up to your full potential. And that literally almost gives me chills, because that's scary. That's scary. Super scary, because that person's probably incredible. Regardless, they're going to be better, but being able to see it is.
And that's what I believe, and not probably incredible. Each and every single person that ever hears us, that ever doesn't ever hear us, they need to know that person, that incredible person, that was gifted in them when they were born. Period. That exists in every single human, right?
Absolutely.
And we layer ourselves and lie to ourselves and cover ourselves up with this lie and believe this lie over here, and we trade our truth for another lie here, and we give away some truth over here and we accept a lie here. I'm low, I'm an idiot, I'm not smart, I'm inadequate, I'm shamed or shameful, I'm guilty, I'm not innocent. What is it? Innocent? Not innocent. Uninnocent. Not real sure.
Not innocent.
I guess you're just not innocent.
Yeah,
but I'm whatever it is. You think of all that guilty. I'm the best. I'm the worst, and all these things we pile on ourselves, and we have to. Personal change is like getting rid of that and getting down to the heart of who you really are. Figuring out what you're good at, like he's saying. Figuring out where your strengths are, and doubling down on those and going that direction. That's personal change. So.
And the other thing that you'll find in podcasts and classes and courses and all these info products is that they will want you to figure that stuff out. They want you to figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are. But it's because they want to sell you courses for the rest of your life on how to get better at your weaknesses.
Yeah.
Which is not the focus. The whole focus on finding out your strengths and weaknesses is to double down, like you said, triple down on your strengths, and either eliminate the scenarios for the weaknesses to play a role in, or delegate those to other people. Like Joseph just said, we just did an assessment test pretty recently, and Joseph's was like off the charts on relationships, and that's why. It was because he's been able to surround himself with people that every little area that he lacked, he was able to surround himself with people that was their strength.
And I solved my problem through relationships.
And I
got a lot of them.
And if you would have tried to have spent that 10 year, 15 year, the last 5 years just getting better at those things that you weren't good at, then you would not be here to where you are now. And so that's the encouraging thing, is that you're going to figure out in this process of figuring out who you are and your truth, you're going to figure out a lot of stuff that you suck at.
Yeah.
You're supposed to. That's fine. It may be that you have a list a mile long of things you suck at, but you've got these 3 things that you are actually legitimately awesome at.
Yeah.
Then it's literally, how do we get rid of all of that and just go all in so that you're spending 99.9% of your day on the stuff that you're awesome at? Because
100%.
That's how you live a life on purpose, and a life of fulfillment is by doing the things that you were naturally born to do and that you're naturally gifted at doing. And that's how ultimately you're going to have happiness in your life. I mean, you're never going to be happy trying to change the things that you're bad at.
No.
Ever. It's miserable.
No, I know.
And I've tried to do it for years and years and years. And
you know how many times I pick my towel up off the bathroom floor? Never. I'm never doing it. Ever. I'm not good at it. I don't do it anymore.
I need to write that one down. Oh man. But that's it, guys.
Dude, when you have the best points known to man, I say some stupid crap.
It's like, well, it's just like
hey man, this is a fun podcast. This is
important. It's important stuff. And so I do want to recap back to that first part though. What is it in your life that you're pretending isn't a problem? That is the absolute most important thing for you to do today, is to just write that question down and answer it. And answer it truthfully. You don't have to show it to anybody, but just write it down and write it out.
And figure it out.
And just by doing that, this podcast will 100% make an impact. It's impossible not to.
And if that is an external thing, you're going to have to dig deeper. You're going to have to peel some layers of the onion off and get down internal and figure out what it is.
Yeah.
God, I love what you had here on some of the notes, man, about we spend an enormous amount of energy trying to cover up our sins, our hurts, and our hang-ups. Man, if you spent that much time being honest, and you said this earlier, but if we spent all that time being honest with ourselves and honest with those around us, and Tom Shea was talking about honoring your word yesterday. I mean,
there's another thing, and I don't want to go too far into it, but one of the most impactful things that I heard from Tom Shea this past weekend when we got to spend a lot of time with him, again, was a 23-year Navy SEAL, just incredible career as a Navy SEAL, and now incredible career coaching and going consulting.
He's the author of Unbreakable. I am unbreakable.
I am. You are. I've tried. Every podcast I try to break you, and you just never, ever break.
Yes, and you know what I am? I am one with you.
But what he talked about was that it caught me off guard, because I've never thought about it this way. He talked about always having goals and always striving towards achieving goals, and that if you don't have an actual goal in place, if you just are trying to maintain, that you will create problems in your life. Yeah. Because your body, your brain, it has to be solving. You have to be fixing things and solving problems. And so if you just are trying to maintain, like let's just use an example of, I weigh 220 pounds and I'm good at 220, I just want to stay there. You will literally cause situations in your life for you to gain weight so that you can have to lose it again to maintain, like it 100%. In every area of your life. And so it was a huge challenge to me to look at all those areas. Work-wise, I have goals every week. But all those other areas, to have specific measurable goals and an action plan towards achieving them, or knowing that I will create problems that will force me to fall backwards in those areas. And that's just super interesting, because you always talk about, you're always moving forward or backwards, there's no neutral, but like that's the explanation of why. Because it's literally your brain will force you to go backwards. It cannot stay neutral.
Has to have a problem to solve. And so that weight one is an easy one for people to understand. It's a good one. We'll probably do a whole podcast on that.
Yeah, we need to. And I promise we'll have him back on, I'm sure.
Hell yeah.
It's so important to us. So. Well, good deal. So that's episode 25, The Secret on Personal Change. And, or actually, is it 26 or 25? 26. Last one was 25.
26.
Right on the first fire.
26.
And I love the fact that people will be able to see that, because we don't edit. Which is nice, and we can be transparent and real. So
right. So
if you say
all
something
right.
bad about me, everyone's going to hear it. So don't.
So that's what I do.
And that's my truth.
And that's and that's what Tyler's dealing
All right,
with.
guys. So with that, I am Tyler Harris.
Joseph Caldwell.
And we are the Sales Wolves.
What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to The Modern Man. This is a show where we explore and we discuss some of the obstacles and the challenges that men encounter on a daily basis in today's society. Through the conversation, we hope to build better men, better fathers, and better husbands to ultimately build a better world. For today's topic, we're going to explore some of our darkest days. Allow me to introduce the panel, the usual suspects, Tyler Harris here, and of course, Charles Russ in the building. And Carl.
What's up, y'all?
Yeah. Very special guest today, Matt Snipes. What's going on, man?
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. Today's topic is going to be a little different. We want to pull back the curtain a little bit and talk about some of our darkest days. Might require some vulnerability a little bit here and there, but before we dive into that and really kind of get into the darkness, Matt, why don't you introduce yourself and let people know who you are and what it is you do?
Yeah, my name's Matt Snipes. I host a podcast called the Self-Made Podcast, where I just try to encourage people to be the best version of themselves, and that's kind of how I met all the guys I'm sitting here with. Is I feel like they're the best version in their respective fields. So I try to surround myself with them, and the information that I share is not my own. I'm honestly not that smart. I just pick up from guys like this and share it with my audience.
I think we all kind of try and surround ourselves, and we have our starting five, constant switching up the roster to grow. So I actually hold you as one of those people that I learned from too. So glad to have you here. Jumping into the topic of the darkest days, I think it's easy to watch this program, see some of the accomplishments, the success that we're currently enjoying, as big or as little as it might be, and think, for anyone watching, how can I relate? And there's always a starting point. So to kind of get things going with some of my darkest days, I think I'll go first and share my story. Sure. In terms of, for me, I describe this as this, and what are some of the things you've accomplished in your life or you've overcome in your life that when you look back, it gives you confidence to overcome things in the future, whatever life throws at you. For me, giving everybody a quick backstory, when I graduated, I worked at a law firm and it was just not for me. I wasn't made for a cubicle, and I wouldn't say full-on depression, but I was just in a bad spot. My routine would be work, get out of work, go to McDonald's, get a 20-piece chicken nuggets, large fry, large sweet tea, go home, chow that thing down and lie in bed. My parents are home, they cooked, but I didn't want to eat that. So my health wasn't good, and eventually had stomach problems. Got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. For those of you that don't know what it is, it's similar to Crohn's. I'll spare everybody the nasty details. Just know that I had blood coming out of both ends. That was the result of my large intestine no longer absorbing nutrients, ended up putting me in the hospital. I'm in the hospital for 2 weeks. I lost 30 pounds in 1 month. Wow. Surgeon comes in, wants to give me a CAT scan. He says, I'm on morphine, I'm on prednisone, which is a steroid to try and fight the inflammation in my large intestine. They said, listen, man, it's been over a week. Prednisone's not working, we're not fighting it, we're gonna do a CAT scan. If we don't like what we see, we're taking you to Mount Sinai in New York, and we're taking your large intestine out. I'm 23 years old, man, and I'm like, okay. At the time, looking back, the pain was so bad. I literally looked at my mom, I looked at my dad, who's crying for the second time I've ever seen in my life, and I said, take that bad boy out. My large intestine hurt me that much, I wanted it out. Thankfully, CAT scan came back, I was fighting it, I came back, got out of the hospital, but that was a switch for me where I kind of decided I didn't want my stress and my environment to dictate my health anymore. A lot of what they said in the hospital was, were you stressed out at work? Because that can give you an onset for this. And are you taking care of your health? What are you eating? So all that kind of came together as a perfect storm. So when I got out of the hospital, I knew I had to make a change. And my change was kind of really cutting out the BS. Stopped accepting things that I wasn't really happy about. And what I ended up doing was kind of ended a relationship that wasn't good for me, moved out of my parents' house, started applying and really kind of taking responsibility for myself. And almost a year to the day after I got out of the hospital, I was accepting what would be a dream job in Saginaw, Michigan as a meteorologist, which continued to put me on the trajectory of where we are now. So I share that story just because every day I wake up, I take 4 blue pills for my stomach. It's an everyday thing. I gotta fill the prescription, and I'm gonna have it for the rest of my life. And if my stomach acts up a little bit, that's always a little bit of a scary thing. But I don't let that dictate my day to day, because my positivity kind of just keeps me pushing forward. So that's my story, guys.
Man. So go back to, there's two separate things there. You had the working in the cubicle, just not happy where you were in life, and you had the medical issue. And the medical issue happened during that same time, or kind of right after you realized that you were in that bad place. So it's like 2 completely separate issues that all came to a head at one time, which is interesting. And so what was it that ultimately, was it, if the medical issue had never happened, do you think you would have had the transition in your professional life as well?
I've never been asked that before, and honestly, when I think about it, I don't think so. If it wasn't for the medical issue, I don't think I would have gotten to that breaking point.
That moment.
Because it was a position where I blamed everything else around me. I'll be honest with you guys. I blamed me not getting a job on me being black. I'm like, oh, I can't get a job, and I'm applying left and right, and I can't get experience. And how can I get a job and get experience if I don't have experience? How can I get experience if they don't give me a job? And I really kind of was lashing out on everything, and kind of just being in that hospital bed with all this stuff happening to me. And literally the doctor's like, are you stressed? What are you eating? There was nobody I could blame for eating 20 piece chicken nuggets every day other than myself. That was like the mirror I needed, where it's like, well, man, you haven't really been taking care of your stomach. Sorry, doc. So
there's a lot. You said a lot there. I mean, there's some good points. Even a health scare. One thing, like now you have, and one thing I'm big on is habits and reminders. So even if it was a placebo, those 4 blue pills every morning, you literally have a reminder every day. Hey Ted, keep your together.
Yeah.
Let's go. You know, it's like, it's a reminder, and we don't need to always forget things that happened that were bad.
Yeah.
We shouldn't forget them. They should be lessons learned. We shouldn't, wallow in pity. Of course, no, I don't think any of us is like that, but you don't forget. You know, I know a lot of people that they get into that mindset. I'm just going to forget that ever happened. No, you're not really supposed to forget, but it's supposed to be a lesson. It's supposed to be a guide. It's supposed to be a reminder. And those 4 blue, it's crazy, 4 blue pills, it's like the Matrix. You got it's Ted's little Matrix. And then too, one thing too is, I think a lot of people have gotten into this comfort mindset. You don't know something's wrong until it actually hurts. You know, I think we all have a story of, we thought everything's perfect. Maddie, I know you did a lot. You do a lot of health stuff on your podcast. Chiro is a big one for me, because it's like because I've had an experience with chiropractic stuff, and I didn't know anything was wrong. I thought it was perfect until I found out it wasn't. You know, so and that drives change. That level of comfort, getting into a discomfort zone because you figure out that it's not right, drove a change for you.
Yeah.
You know, if that never would have happened, what would you be doing right now? You'd probably be pissed off in a cubicle, maybe making more money, maybe not. Maybe you would have said, well, I've been doing law, I'm going to get a law degree and be a lawyer, which sounds great unless you hate it.
That was also presented on the table.
So just think about, when we start talking about these darker days and these horrible things that happen, a lot of times, weirdly, on the end, I look back at my bad moments, I'm like, was it really that bad? Or was it a necessity?
Well, it's just it's gratitude for it. Like, I'm sure you're grateful for that now.
Oh yeah.
And that's the most encouraging thing that people can get from watching this, listening to this, is that more than likely it'll be congruent in all of our stories, is that the pain that we went through, we're now grateful because it turned us into who we are. It gave us that catalyst, it gave us that spark, it gave us that that fork in the road where we could choose to stay with what we were doing, and that for you was a bad place health-wise, but it was a catalyst for you to change the rest of your life as well. And so for people that are watching that are in it right now, that are in the middle of a struggle, that are in the middle of that pain, or in the middle of that place where they don't feel like they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, for them to understand that, man, one day I'm going to look back just as Ted looks back on that horrible situation with gratitude because of what happened next. I would find an insane amount of encouragement in that, to know that if I can just push through this, chances are there's a blessing on the other side that I'm about to receive, and I'm going to be able to be just like these guys, talking about it one day and talking about it in a positive light.
As crazy as it is, and I think the switch was literally on the hospital bed. And when you're in the hospital, they come in every morning, they prick you to take blood. Every night they prick you to take blood. And I ran out of veins, now they're taking it out of my hand. And I remember sitting there in pain and thinking to myself, and I got the IV, and this is right around December, so I'm the only dude with ornaments hanging from my IV because I wanted a Christmas tree. But I'm thinking to myself, if I overcome this, I'll be great. I'll be okay. Yeah. And those four blue pills every single day when I take them, it's not a woe is me, it's not this, the other thing, it's like, let's go, baby. I went from having to take one at a time to I pop all four, take a little water, drink, and just keep it moving, because this is the hustle. This is the day. It don't stop me, it's part of me, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah, no matter how dark something you're going through could be, there will come a time where it will change from why is this happening to me to why did this happen for me. You know, and I think that's the reason we're all sitting here now is, you know, that mindset, that click happened, that this happened for us, not to us. We're not a victim. You know, this was to show us something bigger, you know, and something to learn from, be appreciative, you know, and that's, so I'll go ahead and share my story. I made a big list of things. What do I want to share? And some of them were more impactful, but then I thought about the guys that I'm going to be sitting here with. And what do we have in common? And that's that we're all really big into physical things. You know, we all work out. We all take a lot of pride in our physique. I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying that. You know, we like to look good. And I feel like we're all on a pretty elite level, you know what I mean, in our respective fields. So recently, I got hurt in the gym. So, as you mentioned, the chiropractor, I thought that I had just done something wrong doing a deadlift. Come to find out, it was our buddy Jake Tubbs that kicked me in my head when we were doing some MMA training. that our chiropractor.
Note to everyone: don't spar with Jake. If you haven't seen the video, it's a pretty legit, full-on heavyweight leg kick to the dome.
Yep, exactly. So, having gone to the chiropractor, I found out that that's what set things off, and it was just a ticking time bomb, and what I was doing at that time didn't matter. It was just going to happen. But that put me down for the count to the point where I can't put my shoes on by myself. I couldn't walk out to the car. I couldn't drive the car. I could barely get out of bed. I was literally hunched over, you know, to walk to the bathroom. Took a lot of effort. And that set me back a lot, because a lot of my identity is what I'm able to do physically. You know, not only is that my main source of income, you know, is physical labor, but, you know, going to the gym, that puts me in the headspace to be able to do my podcast. And that's my biggest passion. So without being able to get that physical, you know, exertion, my mind was just going to dark places. You know, I'd kind of just, it had been 2 or 3 weeks and I'd just given up. I'm like, well, you know, I'm not really interested in the gym, even if I do get better. Don't care. Didn't want to record a podcast because I wasn't in a good space mentally. I was like, I don't want to project this onto my listeners. Nothing good will come out of that. So it really, really made me appreciate what I had before that, because before it was just natural. You know, it was just, this is what I do, you know, and I'm around people that do the same thing. So it really made me appreciate people that can't do what I'm able to do now. Unfortunately, I'm on the way up, I'm on the mend, that some people aren't. So it really made me grateful that I'm able to do the things I'm able to do with my body.
What helped you to start digging out of that hole?
I think it was just knowing that what's wrong with me is going to heal itself. You know, I went to the doctor and got checked out and stuff, and they said, just give it a little time, you know. So just knowing that it was going to get better, you know, that was a big thing. But it's also made me change my focus on, you know, everything I do. You know, I'm now grateful to go outside and throw the ball with the dog, just because I'm like, what if I couldn't do this? You know, because I couldn't when I was hurt. You know, I couldn't throw a ball. I couldn't lift my arm up over, all because of a back injury.
Yeah. Sounds like that gratitude, you know, with a situation that anybody's going through, your gratitude for what you can do is what can kind of push you forward. Because, you know, we've all heard the quote, you know, I was mad because I didn't have no shoes, and then I met a man that didn't have any feet. It's easy to kind of think, woe is me, why am I going through this? But the reality of it is, regardless of what you're going through, as bad as it is, you know, it can get better. As long as there's still life in you, it can get better, and you have the opportunity to make it better. And also being thankful for where you are compared to where you can be is always a good motivator in terms of pushing forward and kind of taking the grasp of your current situation, making it your own and making it better, not waiting for it to become better.
You may say no, and this will ruin my hypothesis, but sometimes I've found that you have to get sat down for a minute. Like, you got sat down for a minute.
Oh yeah.
To figure out kind of what's next. And so did you have any time during that period where you couldn't just go do the things that you're normally doing, where you had time to finally think, and maybe think even a little more clearly because you didn't have the distractions of the daily stuff you were always doing?
100%. It's even, you know, it gave me time to outline some goals that I've got for myself, and it kind of changed my path for where I thought I was going to go this year. And I'm going in a completely different direction only because I had the time to sit there alone with my thoughts and decide, you know, hey, I could do this if I apply myself. So, you know, get out of that comfort zone.
And so again, in that situation, you would have never sat down and done that had you not been forced to.
Never. Nope. I don't think I would have.
Interesting.
Well, that's. I mean,
I'm
that's.
glad you said yes.
No, not really. All right, cool. What do you think, Charles? Yes. That's cool, Charles. You go to. Yeah. Well, man, that deload process. It's like you take a deload week sometimes in the gym. Like I'm taking one next week. Back. Like my knees are starting to hurt. Elbows are starting to hurt. I've been gung ho. Went back to doing full body workouts with cardio and a lot of pounding and. No, next week I need to deload. So 100% understand. But the gratitude portion is a life changer. And it can come from something as simple as what just happened. You know, one thing is, you know, Tyler and I both have kids. You guys, at some point it will probably happen, I would think, just knowing the kind of guys you are. One thing that I'm really trying to teach my kids is gratitude. Like especially from an athletic standpoint. Boy, you didn't do anything to be fast, to be strong, to be agile. You don't even train, like you're not there. So why should you be conceited or over chest out pound? You should always be confident. I'm not talking about confidence, but it's that this was a free gift. You should appreciate it. Not be conceited about it or be cocky about it. And that's what happens when little stuff, I feel like, gets taken away. Like when, you know, the first time I got hurt wrestling in college, I literally was lateral raising a 5-pound dumbbell and I was like, oh! And it wouldn't go up. And I was like, wait, time out, what's going on? You know, and it's that appreciation of, you know, it's knowing that you're and in this case it's physical gifts. You're physically gifted as a person compared to other people. Everybody can't do what you do, and it has nothing to do with their thought process, their work ethic, or anything. It's just not going to happen. So I appreciate that, and that also bleeds over into mental. Believe it or not, everybody is not as what we would literally term as smart. Everybody's just not. It's just not there. I appreciate that, and I feel like that gift of appreciation, though, drives motivation. So if I've been given this and I didn't do anything for it, I need to use it. I need to use it for the benefit of myself, for other people, the world. I need to use it as much as I can. And I feel like that path of gratuity, which you even do with your podcast, you know, it's that sharing. It's like, I'm gonna go get you some answers. Because there's somebody, you're listening, I'm gonna go get you some answers. Because I love that you bring to the table answers. You bring to the table fitness answers, health answers, mental health answers, solutions. That's huge. But I think you only find that the path to helping others is actually through gratitude for what you have.
What's your story?
Oh, it's on me, huh? Ted, well, we've had this conversation a couple times, man. I've been a blessed person my whole life, and a lot of that's my perspective. It's being taken care of, man. I've been very blessed. So, you know, I don't hide that I'm a religious person. You know, I would never hide it. So when I came back from Germany, I'd been in a relationship with a young lady for 9 years, and it just didn't work out. I'll even tell you full out, the way I was at the start of the relationship, I wasn't a good boyfriend. But we worked through it and we tried to grow. And then when it came to the point where my kids were getting older, they said to me, "Hey, Dad, why don't you just live here?" Because I was coming back every other month for a couple weeks. I thought it was great, right? It fit with everybody. And one of them just said to me, "Hey, Dad, you know, if you were here, you'd come to all the games. You wouldn't miss any games." Blah, blah. And I was like, man, it's time to go back. She had her business in Germany. She has her family there, and we just couldn't make it work. So, you know, I'm coming back, and I get back and I link up with my high school girlfriend, and she had previously had breast cancer, and she was in full remission. We thought it was good, it was gone. I mean, I went to the doctor with her at Duke, it's gone. It's good, man. We think, oh yeah, this is it. We're gonna make this happen. Man, a couple months later, it's back. And I mean, it's back. I mean, you know, and over the next 6, 7, 8 months, she went downhill fast, and she passed away. I went through a point where I was literally angry at God. I was like, why would you do this to me? Like, I just figured out how to be a decent boyfriend in Germany, and you took me away from that. I just got my crap together there. You take me that, and you put me in this relationship, and then you do this to me? Like, why? I was drinking heavy. I was partying. It was when I first moved back. I mean, I was partying, dude. I mean, it was probably, I would say, Wednesday through middle of the day Monday. The following week is when I would get my crap all the way back together. You know, I was on it. And I woke up one morning and I said, dude, what the hell is wrong with you? Just get it together. And it wasn't, I wish I had some fleeting moment, but I wasn't doing well at work. You know, my fitness, I wasn't in as good a shape as I normally am. I was missing appointments, just wasn't there. But one thing that occurred to me, you know, because I was missing Sundays, I wouldn't go to church. I was missing Sundays at church. One thing that occurred to me, started going back to church, more consistent, was that nobody did anything to me. Nothing happened to me. The situation was that I was there. You have to be a vessel. We all hear that. If you go to church, you've heard it, you got to be a vessel. You got to be willing to be used as a tool to help other people. So there's situations that when I think back, it's like, okay, well, if I wouldn't have been there, she couldn't have had her kids. Or when we had to move, me and my brother and her parents loaded all of her stuff and moved it. You know, I took her to Duke and I stayed with her because her parents had to work, so we rotate. I was part of all that for her so that her last days could be as good as possible. It wasn't for me. It had nothing to do with anything being done to me. And it was literally a snap thought that was like, dude, it wasn't to you. And I got lucky. If you've never been to the Cancer Survivors Park, that story is in there because they wanted people who have had experience with cancer, different experiences, and they wanted my experience. So it's on one of the boards in the Cancer Survivors Park. And I learned from that point on, which literally feeds into what we've been talking about, a lot of things we talk about in Modern Man, is doing stuff for others. I literally got mad at God because he had me do something for someone else. It had nothing to do with me. It wasn't for me, it was a lot. It was for me to learn a lesson as well. So not only was I privileged to help someone else who's a great person, I got to learn a lesson, a huge lesson. And I had, I didn't really, I wasn't not a big emotional person. It's not my thing. One day in the car, I'm riding home, and I had a little breakdown. I'm just crying, literally for no reason. And I realized, like, dude, you learn. Now it's time for you to take what you've learned and share it.
I think in a conversation you and I had, you had talked about talking to her mom and getting a really understanding of how much it meant for you to be there during that time.
Yeah, first time we sat down and had lunch.
So how much time passed from her passing to you realizing how much of an impact it had, to where you had that realization of like, oh, now I get it. I wasn't going through that for me, it was going through that for her?
Somewhere between a year and a year and a half, just being honest. Like when it really clicked in. It was a few months after.
Was that the first time you feel like in your life that you, even though weren't necessarily realizing it at the time, but you were like truly like selfless in that period of time?
100%.
Yeah.
To be selfless.
Yeah.
100%. Like it was not doing. It had nothing to do with me. Like that's the thing. At the end of the day, it had nothing to do with me. If she needed me to sit there because she wanted to have her kids, she wasn't feeling well, you sit there. If she needed me to go get something, I go get it. And and I've been blessed since then. I have a great relationship now. Great relationship now. But it all led to that. Me having a good relationship is part of something that I learned here. Me being able to do the things with people, finding my passion for doing something for other people came from that.
Yeah.
And I see it now. Now when you look back, it's like as you get older and you learn, look back. Look at experiences, because you'll see them through a different lens, and you'll understand why things happen. Because I do feel like there are reasons. You don't change if everything's perfect. You just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
So sometimes you need some pressure. You need a little pain. You need a little pain to bend that pipe.
And see, that's a story I didn't know about you, but since I've known you, every time I'm around you, you're always helping someone else, figuring out a way to help someone else. You're always doing for others. Is that the event that kind of set that wheel in motion for you? Or?
Yep. 100%. Like, so it's funny that it's the darkest days, but that's one of my brightest, to use the word beacons. That's like one of my little beacons. It's like, don't ever forget, like, you're supposed to do for others, especially when given that opportunity. And I don't run around trying to interject into everyone's business. But when you see that someone needs you and you can help them, and you can push them through, or you can get them over the hump, or just help them maintain when they can't do it themselves, it's like one of the most and it's internally gratifying, very.
If you think about even taking it to another level of perspective on her, like imagine her last days that she was able to give you that.
Yeah, she let me spend
and all the people that you've helped since was as a direct result of her being willing to allow you to help. Because a lot of people get in those situations, they're like, I don't want anybody's help.
Yep.
I want to go through this by myself. Like, I don't want anybody around. But her willingness to let you be a part of that, which at the time was incredibly difficult, but now it's because of something that she did that enabled you to have that selfless moment for the first time, which enabled you to have all the power now to help all these other people, and the willingness to help all these other people. It's unbelievable. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's a new perspective. That literally just another moment. Like, she let me be a part of that.
Tyler, what about you?
Yeah, so growing up, I had a great, kind of like you said, I was blessed. I had a great family, great upbringing. Went to school, graduated, became a financial advisor, and I thought I was the king of the world. I was making good money right out of school.
We made it.
Yeah, I was just, but it's funny, I was telling somebody just the other day that I can remember some conversations that I'd had with my dad about bad things happen. And I kind of had started having this fear of it can't
it can't be good forever. Like, what's it gonna be? Like, when's the shoe gonna drop? It's funny. I just had some realizations of those conversations here recently, but it did drop, and it dropped in a bad way. Life happened. Crazy situation took my business away from me. That was, completely out of my control. A couple weeks or a couple months after that, found out that my wife, who we'd been dating all through college, and I got married right after school, had been having an affair for a long time, and went through that process of me trying to make it work, and going through counseling, and her still being with him, and finally, ultimately culminating in us getting a divorce, which was very, very difficult. We had separated. My family didn't live here in town, so when we separated, she went and lived with her family in town and had this support system, and I was alone by myself in my house, and even went through a period of time where I didn't tell my parents about it, that the affair, and that I was going through all this, because I didn't want them to worry. I didn't want them to. My mom worries anyways, and so I didn't want it to be one more thing, since they weren't here, that they would be worrying about me, and so went through a lot of stuff alone for the first time, and started drinking a lot. Just like kind of with your story, I was drinking all the time, just trying to numb the pain. Really, I mean, just having gone through a lot of pain before in my life, I didn't really know how to handle it, quite frankly. So drinking a lot, which just led to further problems. I found my now wife. We met each other, and something I hadn't talked about a whole lot is I was still lost. Like, we found each other, and we were dating, and things were getting pretty serious, but like I still had no idea what I was going to do professionally. Was still drinking too much. I ended up going to Ohio to help a friend launch a business up there. I was up there for about 6 or 7 months, and really just like hit the peak of my drinking and just being an idiot, like just partying all the time. But it's funny, when I was in Ohio, I was renting out this room inside a basement. It was like in an interior room inside of a basement. So it was like like no windows. And it was like the first time I'd ever found myself like truly, truly alone. I'd been, raised in a good family, went to college, lived in a fraternity house with like 10 other guys. And as soon as I graduated, I got married. So I was with my wife. Like, I'd never been alone, ever. Like, never been alone. And there were some moments in that basement where I felt like God had purposely put me there and said, hey, I needed some stuff to happen in your life so I could finally get you alone, so you could finally cut out the noise and finally hear me. Like, you could finally get to a place where we could actually talk and get to know each other. And there were some of the most transformative nights of my life in that basement of that guy's house that I was living with, just reading the Bible and being in deep prayer. Moved back to South Carolina, proposed to my wife, now wife. We got married, but still was drinking too much. Still didn't have any idea what I was doing with my life. And some mentors came into my life at that time. And it's interesting when a unique situation, when you have a wife that has an affair and you're the man in the situation, it destroys your confidence, as you can imagine. And my confidence was just beaten down. It was like at an all-time low. And in that same time, around that same period, also having lost my business, I had these things that I had gone all in on and that had been taken away from me. And so a lot of the fear and a lot of this uncertainty and not knowing what to do with my life was this uncertainty to go all in again, that it would be taken from me. And so I would bounce around from sales job to sales job, and I'd either quit or get fired because I wouldn't put the work in. And it was just to be able to use that excuse, like, oh yeah, that job, yeah, it didn't work out. I mean, if I would have tried, I would have done well, but I wasn't really going all in. But if I had, I would have crushed it. And you always use it as an excuse, but it was just a fear. It was just a fear of actually trying again and having something taken away from me. And so these mentors came into my life, these 3 guys, and really just breathed life back into me. They gave me an opportunity to work with them. And the type of work that it was very fast-paced and transactional, which is exactly what I needed to build my confidence back up. It was like, put in some work, get a reward. Put in some more work, get in more reward. And it just built that up. And they started really just spending time with me, talking about like the self-development side and the mental side, and about the law of attraction, and about, you know, the fact that like I was exactly where I was supposed to be because of the decisions I had made in my life. And it was really in that moment that I finally took ownership and realized that everything was my fault. And it's usually an interesting conversation amongst men when I talk about like, oh, no, man, you know, her having an affair, that wasn't your fault. I'm like, well, you know, if I had been the absolute best husband, created the best environment in our home, would that affair have happened? Possibly, but I'm thinking probably not. And so I wasn't a terrible husband, but I wasn't the best. And so I had to take ownership of that, and like, and finally understand that like that was my fault. And with the business, like, was that my fault? At the time, I was placing the blame on everybody else, and realizing that the longer you point at everybody else, you give them the keys to your handcuffs. And that until you point your finger back at yourself and take blame for it, is the only moment where you can actually do something about it. And so it went from this blame game, oh, my wife did this, oh, my employer, you know, this happened, and oh yeah, this guy fired me, and this opportunity didn't work out. And then finally just took responsibility for myself. And that was the beginning of, you know, 4.5 years ago, of just this huge transformation in my life, where when you talk about, and we talk often about like auditing your circle, but it was more for me auditing the things that I was allowing in from a macro scale. Like I quit watching TV, quit listening to anything other than books, you know, audiobooks, podcasts, YouTube series, and just saturating myself in positive messages and just completely suffocating any negativity around me. All the people I used to hang out with, don't hang out with anymore. All the things I used to, like, I just completely changed as a person. And over that process, changed externally as well. But it started internally for me. Like I had to change myself. I had to become a different person in order to kind of take it to the next level. And it happened fast. Like I think that's the biggest encouragement that I would like to give someone, is that like, that was 4.5 years ago. I love that it was 4.5 years ago, because I can feel it. Like in this moment, I can feel what it felt like. And it was horrible, terrible, a lot of pain, a lot of struggle. But that now I'm grateful and know that it happened for me, like Matt said, not to me. And the affair, I'm so grateful that affair happened, because I'm the husband that I am today because of it. I'm the father that I am today because of it. And I know I wouldn't be half the father and half the husband had I not gone through that and realized in the areas that I needed to step it up in my life. The business failure, I'm the business person I am today because of that happening. And so I'm extremely grateful for having gone through that pain. And so for the people watching this, the people that are listening, to know that we talk about patience, we talk about, you know, all these things, but like it can happen quickly. Like when you make that decision to change, and you make that decision and take ownership of your life, like it can happen quickly. It may not be overnight, but in a matter of a few months and in a matter of a few years, your life can be radically different. And so to me, that's the biggest encouragement to someone that's listening to this, that may be in that struggle, or maybe in that feeling of like hopelessness, of like, I just don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, to know that they could look up a year from now and be in a radically different place. And for my life now, I want people to understand that. I want people to know that. And I want people to look at guys like us and say like, yeah, they're doing some cool stuff, but man, they're just like me. Like we have the ability to have messed up, failed, struggled in the exact same way, if not way worse than anybody watching this or listening to this. And we may in the future, quite frankly. But that as long as you take ownership of everything, then you can get yourself out of it, because you're the one that got yourself into it.
It's like a quote I heard, Bedros Koulian, he said, I'm 2 or 3 decisions away from being broke, but I'll never be poor because of everything he's put into his mind, everything he's put into his life. And kind of the purpose of this episode, to your point, is pulling back that curtain and letting anybody listening, watching know we are human and we've had those dark days before. And just listening to all your stories, you look back and you're thankful for that. Another quote I heard was like, you will be shocked at how grateful you are that this is happening to you, regardless of what it is you're going through. With that being said, do you guys think your darkest days are behind you? And coupled with, how are you preventing those dark days from coming back? Or how are you preparing yourself to get through the dark days? Because as you mentioned, Tyler, life happens. And as long as we're living, things can get better. But we are just a few bad decisions away from messing 1 or 2 things up.
It's not even just bad decisions. You can make every right decision and bad things can happen. That's just life. But I think you can get to a place where you build the strength in your mind to where when the bad things do happen, that they don't knock you down as long. Like, that's my focus. Like, I know I'll get knocked down again. Like, I know it because I'm trying to do some incredibly great things. And no one gets to the extraordinary levels without getting knocked down multiple times. But it's building yourself and through discipline of the daily things that you're doing to build that mental fortitude that when you get knocked down, maybe this next time it won't take me a year and a half. Maybe this next time it'll only take me 6 months. Then I'll keep growing, and then the next time I get knocked out, maybe it'll only knock me down for 3 months. But I think to think that you're going to get to a place where, I'm so strong that I can't get knocked down again, that's when you really get knocked down.
Right. Yeah. The important thing to remember too is, it's easy for anyone to go look at someone on social media. It's a highlight reel. Yeah. You have to remember that. I mean, even with us, there's a lot of cool stuff. We're very fortunate guys, but we've all dealt with some stuff. Oh, yeah. And the guy that you see on top is probably dealt with the most because he's learned to deal with it a little better, a little better, and a little better every time. So it doesn't keep him down as long. So don't be afraid to deal with the stuff. Don't be afraid when it happens to you that it's going to crush you or cripple you. It's a stepping stone that's going to build, literally, it's a rep in the gym. It's going to build you up stronger. So when you see that guy on social media that you want to be, the Gary Vee or whoever your influencer is, remember, he's gone through a lot of stuff to get there. His life wasn't perfect. I guarantee you, nobody who's anywhere where you want to be has had it just given to them. It doesn't last,
What are you doing to protect yourself from the dark days or to equip yourself to get through any future dark days?
I surround myself with people that can help me. When those fall upon me, I've got people I can go to if mentally I'm in a bad spot that kind of know me well enough to know, hey, this is what you're doing. I like people that call me out on my stuff because oftentimes it's me that's doing it to myself. There's some self-sabotage. So I like keeping people around me that are comfortable enough with me to say, hey, it's you. The problem's not with anyone else, And I think you realize that a lot too in your situation was a lot of times the problem's internal. It's easy to say it was something else, but a lot of times it's in you. What can I do different? What did I do wrong? Even when something happens to you, where did I do something wrong where I could have been better?
Absolutely.
Nice. Well, I had two questions for Tyler on the story, but he 100% answered one of them. I was going to go back and ask you, well, did you go all in? Were you really going all in? And you said no on the marriage. So you 100% answered that one. Another one's not really a question, but I'm 100% dad right now. I've been in dad mode for a couple years, hard, because I got kids. They're in that age where they can be a disaster or you can really flourish. He said something that I think a lot of parents, and especially people in my situation where parents are together, you're almost like in competition for your kids. You want to make sure everything's smooth. Tyler literally said he had never had anything bad happen. Sometimes you got to let that happen. If they're not going to go off a cliff and it's not going to derail them from life, let it go. Yep. Let it happen and help them deal with it. Don't shield it. Don't stop it. Let it happen. That's how we become equipped. Because if you notice in all our stories, that's what we're talking about. It has equipped us to deal with stuff going forward. He was more equipped, better equipped to be a good husband, and now to be even a good father because it's happened. You're more equipped, and you know more about being, both of you two, about your health, physical, and even the gratefulness of what has happened. It's equipping you. That being said, and that's one thing with my kids. They've had, we had a little thing happen recently, and it's equipment. Let it go. Like, they gotta learn. They gotta stick it out, and they gotta learn from it. So then next time something bad happens, it's not so bad. Everything's bad the first time. I remember the first time I got a tattoo, I almost jumped out of the chair when the needle touched. Whoa, time out. Is this what the whole thing is like? Now I get in the chair, I'm like, whatever, dude. It's different because now I'm equipped. I've dealt with it. That being said, that's my answer to the question. My darkest days will always be behind me because of my perception, my thoughts about life, the way my brain works now. I know I've got some rough patches coming. I can sit here and tell you 5 that I know are going to happen at some point, and I'm going to have to deal with it. But it's not going to be my darkest days because of this. My perception on life has been permanently changed. My thoughts about life are permanently changed. Because if you really get down to it, what makes something horrible?
The way you see it.
The way you deal with it, the way you perceive it, and the way you deal with it. I am mentally equipped to deal with it. Now, am I going to be sad at moments? Am I going to cry about some stuff? Yep. But it's never again will I let that happen to myself. Because I understand that there's a plan, there's an order, there's something going on, there's a lesson, there's a positive every time something like that happens, which we've all sit here and just confirmed. So once my perspective is changed, once you fix the top, everything else will fall into place.
Yeah, well, and to expand on that, everyone's so afraid of the struggle. The struggle is what breeds the greatness. When I lived in Las Vegas, I would try to get to the office early sometimes so I could work. And 2 or 3 times, I passed at about 4:30 in the morning, Floyd Mayweather jogging with a team of cars beside him and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, this guy's got millions. He's got a perfect record. He's out here at 4:30 in the morning. No other guy's doing that. This man's not afraid of the struggle, and that's why he's great. And that made me remember, I need to let myself struggle, put yourself in uncomfortable situations.
Embrace those dark days and be the light.
Yeah,
Matt,
absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
This wasn't an episode to get your mood down. This was an episode to pull back the curtain and let you know that we're human too. We've had our dark days. We're just like you. If you're going through a struggle, be your own light. And the one thing I noticed that's similar to all of our stories, being alone. Being alone and having those thoughts with yourself and the responsibility, taking it upon yourself to get yourself out of your current situation. Be grateful. Being grateful is also a catalyst that a lot of these guys share. So when you're grateful, you absorb your aloneness and you take responsibility. You can then drive yourself out of your dark days and then go to the light that you deserve. Be a modern man, guys.